I've always been interested in science. I was one of those kids that had a chemistry set in the backyard, and I was the one that was dissecting flies and making stink bombs and things like that. So I've always had an interest.
Deborah's early interest in dead flies has developed into a firm belief in the value of practical science.
That's what I want to get across in my courses, that science is a practical subject and you need to do it practically. I mean, you wouldn't teach football out of a book, would you? You'd get the kids out doing it, and that's what we want from primary science. Do the biggest hands grab the most sweets? Go all the way through that investigation and come to a conclusion. That's scissors, you've got pens, you've got graph paper. Well, you go back to children and you ask them what do they like about science, and they like the doing bit, they like the practical bit. And I think it's partly because they're engaged with something that's exciting and that they're not really sure what's going to happen. And it's fun, and we try very hard to make it engaging and make it enjoyable for children so that they want to do more and then they want to go on and learn the trickier things. I was taught by a really inspirational teacher who had interesting ideas. She was a druid, and my earliest memory of a science lesson was planting daffodil bulbs and cursing one set and blessing another. But that was the idea of a fair test, that we would bless and curse them. It stuck in my memory that this was sort of a different way of looking at the world. The first thing we need to do is work out how are we actually going to do that comparison, how are we going to compare the hand sizes.
We've decided to do both. We're going to do handspan and then we're going to measure the area to see if handspan actually reflects the size.
Very thorough.
Do you just kind of come in from the top, or are you allowed to use the side, or, Absolutely, and you'll find that children do generate those conversations. You can do it equally well with Year 1 children and with grown-ups, actually.
Deborah feels the abolition of the science SAT risks sidelining her subject.
Because we've lost the science SAT, and there are a whole load of arguments about whether we should have had it in the first place or not, and that's a different issue. But because you've lost that incentive, then the temptation is, yes, well, we'll spend slightly less time on that, important though we feel it is, and to devote to the subjects that are going to show in the league tables, unfortunately. By doing practical science, you can improve mathematical skills by looking at data handling and things like that. You can improve group work and group collaboration and speaking and listening. So not to just think of science as a subject on its own, but as one that if you do well, you can enhance all sorts of other subjects.
Recently, she's introduced a new course to help teachers understand the new APP criteria for science. It's something not all teachers are finding easy to work with.
When I first read the draft guidelines, my heart sank. I thought, oh, something else for teachers to have to do. But actually, as I unpicked it and I got to know it, my cynicism left and I became a bit of a convert, because I thought, actually, no, this is really good, because it encourages you to do practical work. You'll probably have noticed I do a lot of walking around and chatting and listening. And as the APP criteria were revealed in all their glory through the investigations, I think there was that collective kind of sigh of relief that this isn't so hard, we can do this. We've done slightly different things in different groups. Were you surprised how many decisions you had to make there with that? Yes, indeed, the people with the biggest hands did tend to grab the most sweets, but we had one result where it was really just the greediest people who grabbed the most sweets on the table back there.
In the 3 other films in this series, Deborah will demonstrate how to combine practical investigations and the new APP criteria for science in a fun way.